So it is currently dusk, rapidly approaching dark. Actually, it looks like it already is dark. So we're doing this under artificial lighting because if I don't get it done now, it's not getting done until at least next week at the earliest. And I did want to film today because I have some exciting updates and finishes. Well, one's kind of a finish and one's kind of a, I finally got my act together. So, different location, different thing. Unfortunately, the way I have my lights set up when it's just the, photography camera, it's really good lighting. In fact, I managed to take some pictures in this lighting. But when I video, it gets kind of darker, so I'm hoping that we'll be able to see what's actually going on. So, try to do this relatively quickly. When last we spoke, I had plans to participate in the Jessie Marie Does Stuff birthday stitch-along in cross-stitching craft category. And that didn't really happen. My plan was to work on my, what is this even called? Ugh, it's one of those days, I guess. This is the Save the Stitches Blackwork sampler from, Blackwork Journey. And I'm doing it on 27 count white Linda fabric, and I had been about here-ish from here down. So I finished this, and then I did this, and I did the borders and started filling in for the next set of blocks. And like I said, my plan had been to work on that for 3 days, and then for Oldest Whip, completely spacing out what the other two were. It qualified. Oh, S for Jessie Marie Does Stuff, and then one other thing. I don't remember. Anyway, I worked on it for about 3 days, and then I was kind of feeling sick, and I wasn't in the mood to stitch, so I didn't. And I'm also realizing that I know that I don't like switching my pieces on the stand, but I really don't like switching my pieces on the stand, and thinking that I needed to switch almost every day was enough to keep me from wanting to stitch at times. So that happened, but that's okay, because once I got in the mood to stitch again, I finished this little guy, who is about 50% responsible for us filming after dark today, because I finished him, put him on the frame thing today. So this is the Dimensions Kit Oriental Butterfly. It's on 14 count Aida. These brown bits are printed on, everything else is stitched. And if you see, there's some interesting stitching up here at the top. You do a little bit of satin stitching in these red sections, and then this part here and these here are actually like little cords that you make yourself by twisting floss and letting it twist back on itself, and then stitching them in place. And I think when last you had seen this butterfly, he had one wing back stitched and everything from here down finished, and most of the symbols, like about this many symbols down, finished. Something in that vicinity. So I finished him the night before last. The stitching I finished the night before last, and then the framing, it's not actually framing, it's more just mounting, I did yesterday and today. And I talked about this when I had done my eagle piece. Basically, I just mount them to foam board and use pins and hang it on the wall with a little command strip hanger, like it looks like a canvas. I actually will have a video showing how I put this guy on there probably next week. So, finished him, very happy with him. And then, this is the getting my act together part. So, about 5 months ago, I finished all the stitching on the Round and Circles Hearthanger Stitch-Along from Mabel Figworthy. And so this was a year-long, so January, February, March, April, etc., down to December. A year-long stitch-along, kind of teaching you a bunch of Hearthanger. I did it in silver and white on Hearthanger cloth. The silver is Petite Treasure braid, and the white is various DMC pearl cottons. Oh, and silver also is sequins and beads. So you can kind of, the one thing I'm not too thrilled about on this framing that I did with this is I had cut out an area, this is the actual foam board, and then I cut out this area and painted it black so that way the Hearthanger cut work would show up really nicely. which it does, but I hadn't really thought about the fact that you were going to see this frame around it. And I think I did it evenly enough. I think it still looks cool. In hindsight, I probably would have gone ahead and painted this black so that the whole thing would have kind of like a grayish cast. But 5 months after I finished the stitching, it's on the wall, or it was until I pulled it down to show it to you. This is the other 50% of the reason that we're filming After Dusk today. So I did all of those, and then one other thing that I was messing around with was, now that I've finished Oriental Butterfly, the next piece I plan on starting is the Flower of the Month stitch along. I will definitely have a link to it in the description box along with everything else I talk about. I'm trying to think who the designer was. I know her initials are EMS, but I don't remember what names those correspond to. Anyway, I want to do these 12 flowers separately to hang on the wall, one per month kind of a deal. And I had bought some antique white 28 count Monaco from DMC/Charles Craft to do this on. And I liked it okay, but it was a lot yellower than I was expecting, and I really wanted kind of more of a modeling on it. So I ended up, okay, this is the better piece. I bought 2 pieces of this to have enough room for the whole 12 flowers. I think if you were doing them all as one piece, you could probably do it all on one of these, but because I wanted to cut them apart and frame them separately, I needed more room in between them, obviously. So I ended up taking, last night, I got some Rit dye and Cocoa Brown, and I experimented with hand dyeing this fabric. And I really wanted to get the tan. I was going for more of like a tan parchment color, but the store I was at didn't carry the tan dye, so I went with the cocoa, and it ended up coming out a little bit pinker than I really necessarily wanted it. Actually, I've noticed that under daylight it's a little bit more of a yellow tan, whereas under artificial light it's pinker. But on the whole, I'm pretty happy with that piece. First time ever dyeing it. I looked at some tutorials, but I kind of winged it too. There was a lot of winging it. And this is the other piece. As you can see, the modeling pattern on this is not nearly as exciting, and part of the reason was when I crumpled it up, I didn't pay attention to what was up, and so this, like, some of the edges got some really cool modeling that will never be seen because it's going to be on the back of the piece, which is too bad. Process went really well. I will definitely be dyeing stuff in the future. The only problem was the first time around I didn't realize the dye particles were actually pretty hard to fully dissolve. So I have some areas where, you see those little spots? That's where I had partially dissolved dye particles, and I poured the water containing those onto the fabric, and little dye particles sat on the fabric and speckled it. And most of them are hidden, except for this giant pink one. But I think because I'm going to be cutting this into sixths, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to hide that with some creative arranging of pieces. I think I should be able to hide it under the frame, behind the mount, whatever you want to call it. Failing that, I can probably jury rig things so that it ends up understitching. So that's not bad. It came out fairly well. On the whole, I'm much more pleased with it than I am with the plain yellowy stuff that I had before. So we're gonna work with that. I feel like there was something else I was gonna tell you about that. Oh, so it's kind of interesting to me because I've dyed yarn before, and I know when you're dyeing wool or other animal fibers with acid dyes, the red dye molecules bind to the fabric the fastest, and the blue are the slowest, and everything else is kind of in the middle. And I was wondering if that was going to be the same with the fiber reactive dyes that are used on cotton. And I think it was, because I definitely noticed these splotches were very, very pink when I was first dyeing it. And the longer it was in the dye bath, the yellower the dye bath looked. So I think that the red was binding to the fabric, and then the yellow was taking its time getting on there. And perhaps if I were trying to get my goal, if I had the same goal for another piece, I might actually throw a scrap piece in for a few minutes to pick up a lot of that red and pink, and then dye my actual piece in the more yellowy water. But to be fair, I kind of knew that Cocoa Brown was going to be a reddish brown, so what can you do? Okay, so that's my cross-stitching update. I don't know when I'm going to actually start the flowers of the month, so you may not see them the next time I get around here. I may be working on some of my whips first. So that is cross stitch. Now let's talk knitting. That's really the only other craft that I worked on. I worked on I worked on 3 projects. I also worked on the scrap blanket, but I forgot to grab it, and so you're just not going to see it till next time. It's nothing horribly exciting anyway. So the first piece that I made a lot of progress on was the Scheherazade Beaded Lace Shawl by Anna Victoria from By the Lily Pond. I'm doing the stockinette stitch body variation here, and I am doing this in Filatura di Crossi Nirvana color 23. This is not a horrendously off color, it's just a bit lighter than that. And I'm doing them on a 24 or 36, I'm not quite sure, inch circular, size 3 from, crap, they're my favorite, ChiaoGoo. So I'm going to hope that you can actually see this. This is the markers where I was last. And so I finished the stockinette stitch body and I started the lace. I've done the first border chart in about 2/3 of the second, I believe. So, okay, so you can kind of see how the lace is coming out. And like I said, I got a fair bit of progress. I'm pretty happy with that. The rows are definitely getting longer and a lot more complicated as things go on, so hopefully that'll be good. I was hoping that this would end up like really big, but I did the stockinette stitch body as big as she suggests doing the lace body if you're doing the full lace version. However, I think that part of the problem is the stockinette stitch is not as airy as the lace, and so this ends up being small, and I'm not sure how that's going to translate, whether it's going to be smaller than I want or whether when I block it it's going to stretch out enough. But I wouldn't want to do it any larger needle because, as you can see, the stockinette right there is already fairly airy. So anyway, that is coming along, and I am excited to continue with the lace charts and see how that ends up. And fingers crossed it'll be as big as I want. If not, because I want it big enough, I like to wear long shawls, so I want it big enough for that. And if it's not, then it'll end up hanging on the wall as a decoration, like the 2 behind me. The other knitting project that I worked on is the Senna Sock pattern by Cookie A. Oh, there's the picture I wanted, right here. This one I am doing in Malabrigo Sock in the Aguas colorway, and I'm doing the heels and toes in, I grabbed the label because I wasn't sure. It's the WYS West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply in, I believe, licorice is the color. So it's just black. And I'm doing the black heels and toes because the Malabrigo sock yarn doesn't have any nylon in it. It's 100% merino. And when you have socks having the nylon content, makes it stronger. So in the areas that are going to get the most wear, I decided to use a stronger yarn. So I have made a crap ton of progress on these. So, oh, and the other thing that I did is I cut out these little sock blocker things. They're not like proper sock blockers, which would be sturdy and like rigid plastic or metal or wood. These are literally dollar store placemats, tracing around one of the sock patterns I liked to look up, or one of the finished socks I had that I liked to look up, and adjusting from there. But it does kind of spread out my knitting a little bit, so you can kind of see the lace. Hopefully it's dark, and this is a dark green. So anyway, on this sock I had knit down the leg to here, and I turned the heel and knit down the foot, and am probably about ready to start the toe. And then on this sock, when you last saw it, I only had a little bit of the leg done. So I finished the leg, turned the heel, knit the foot, and have started the toe. And my leg yarn is still attached because I'm not sure if the toe is going to be in quite the right spot, or if I'm going to need to do a few more rounds before we get to it. But it's a slightly less blue, slightly lighter green than you're seeing, and then a nice black heel. I have kind of mixed feelings on the black heel and toe. I wish that I had been able to do them in the same color as the whole sock. I think with a pattern like this it would have looked better. However, I also think that it wouldn't have been nearly as functional in terms of a sock that I could wear for a long time if I had done that with this particular yarn. So now I know, and that is everything I really wanted to show you. Progress is being made. I am hoping that by the next time you see me, I will have completed the pairs of socks, probably gotten at least one more chart along on the shawl, and made some stitching progress. I'm not sure what I'm going to do in what order on the stitching, because I finished my close to finishing project, the butterfly. So we shall see. There will be stitching progress. There may be non-stitching, non-knitting progress. Anyway, I'm going to go because you don't need to sit here and see me in artificial lighting any longer than this. And like I said, I believe I'm probably going to upload it next Sunday. I'll have a video on how I did that framing slash mounting slash finishing with those cross stitch in case you're interested. So with that, I will... Alright, it decided to cut me off literally as I was saying goodbye. So anyway, I turned the camera back on just long enough to say bye, see you later, probably next week. Hopefully there'll be like a crafting update the week after that. Bye.